Donating money can make you feel good and happy, and can also give you a sense of meaning, or sense of like, I did something that was useful. So we want more of those feelings in our life. And so sometimes we donate money, but then we have some bad feelings of regret or etc. On this episode of Friends Talk Financial Planning, we're going to be talking about how to have more good feelings when donating and less bad feelings when donating. Hi, I'm Bridget Sullivan Ramel, and I've got a fee-only financial planning practice in Chicago, Illinois.
And I'm John Shear, and I have a fee-only financial planning practice in Middleton, Wisconsin. And before we dig into our advice on giving, I want to remind everybody to hit that subscribe button. That helps other people find us on YouTube, and so hit subscribe. And I'm really interested in talking about this topic, Bridget. That, as you know, that I like, giving is one of my values and things. And you brought up some really interesting things as we were talking before we hit record about some of the potential downsides to giving and how to mitigate those. So I'm really excited to dig in here and talk about this.
Yeah, and some of the research I've looked at bears this out, that some people end up with mixed feelings about giving, and I think it's one of the reasons why people donate less than maybe they think they should. And so I knew that you're kind of more of an expert on this than I am, so let's talk it through. So I think one of the things that happens is people find out about charity scams. And so you thought you were donating money, but then it turns out that the person took the money and ran instead. And so that can make you feel, that's just out there, and that even if it doesn't happen to you personally, I think it can sour people on the idea of giving, because they wonder what the true motives of the organization are. What say you? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's like I said, I love this because I just don't think in that direction very often on things. And so as I was internalizing some of that discussion about, some of the scams, thinking, it's out there. One of the things that's really meaningful for me and maybe is useful for viewers is when I do donate time or money, it's almost always to causes that have been around for a while and that I have some experience with in some fashion. So one of the things I think can play a part in that is when you get those mailers and the phone calls, right? And it's the police or the firemen or these things, and you go, golly, it sounds like a good thing to do. But if I don't have personal experience with it, and maybe it's for those reasons, I never really thought about it that way before, but no, I give to the places I give to, and I've sort of done some homework on them. So maybe that's one of the things in saying is not having it be reactive, but like, no, I like what the United Way does. I like what my church does. I like what these organizations do, so I'm going to support them. Although as you're describing this, I'll tell you, it just reminded me that I rented space in our office suite to a person that was running a nonprofit, I'll say in air quotes. And, there were a lot of red flags. I'll have to say I was younger at the time, and from various things. Nicest guy, and golly, he could sell ice to Eskimo sort of a personality. And I participated in one of the fundraisers and things, and not like I gave a ton of money, but I gave, and found out later on that, he wasn't even a 501c3 charity. He was just some guy that said he was charity, and maybe he did some good things or not, but it was an organization, it had a name, and find out he wasn't paying his employee and doing all these other things that went down with it. So it's interesting. Maybe I blocked those bad things out, right? But I've had the experience of, and if I had paid attention to some of those red flags, as opposed to, hey, this is a nice guy that wants me to do, support this cause, maybe I would have avoided that. So maybe that's some of that personal experience. Hey, if you've got it, and if it's been around, the United Way or the Humane Society or some of these places have been around, you have at least less chance, not like, you never have to worry about that, but much less chance of it being some fly-by-night operation.
Yeah, so I think that's a really interesting experience, especially this ironic stance of like you donate money to him and then he pays you back in rent. But anyway, right. But anyway, aside from that, another thing I like to distill this is if they come to you versus if you go to them.
Right.
So if something that you might see on TV, or something that somebody who calls you, unsolicited phone call, you're saying you give less credibility or are less likely to donate to them. Yeah. Maybe if you do some outside research, and I would suggest Charity Navigator is one place that you could check just to make sure, are they a 501c? Do they file their tax returns, and how much do they actually donate?
Right.
Right.
So the other thing that's interesting as you bring that up, and that's exactly right. Like for me, it's just by nature. I don't know why, but it's things I've got experience with. I'm reaching out and I want to support as
Right.
opposed to the other way around. The other side of it is, or at least a corollary, is things that are more local, hyper local, as opposed to national and the big organizations. It tends to be more meaningful for me personally, I think, because I know that money is going into this community or that area. But then maybe there's a little bit less chance anyway for chicanery to go on, because you can see there's, when, again, I had a bad experience with a staff of 2 or 3 people, but generally there's less places to hide than these bigger organizations, national things where, as maybe just another corollary to that is the local things can be more meaningful and perhaps less fraught with potential.
You might get more feedback.
Yeah,
you
yeah,
might
right.
you find out that this guy is a scammer before giving him even more
Right,
money.
right, right.
Okay, so here's another feeling of regret that I'm familiar with. Is I don't donate enough. I should do more. I didn't do it correctly. I should have done something differently. So I'll donate money and then I'll think, oh, this was just a teaspoon in the ocean of problems.
And it's interesting as you say that one, and it would be curious for me is if you don't donate at all, you don't necessarily have those feelings as I'm hearing you say it. But if I do, then I have a feeling, at least potentially, of inadequateness in some fashion. And I wonder if that, again, I've not experienced that, and I haven't heard from clients having that experience with things. But I wonder, can you relate that to anything? Is it tied to something else?
Sure. I mean, I can end up feeling like that about many things. But I think one thing that I've realized as I've just processed this, that I have this feeling, is that, even the richest people in the world, they have the most money possible, they can't solve all the problems.
Yeah, right.
They can't donate out of all of the world's problems. And they can make some influence, presumably more than mine, maybe, I don't know. But it's like I'm holding myself to a standard that is not reachable.
Yeah.
So I think there's a different way of framing it for me that would help me with those feelings.
Yeah, maybe just putting in, you do what you can. And for me, as I think about that, again, I don't have that same experience, but it's, as doing something is better than doing nothing, right? I'd like to go out and, run 5 miles when I go to work out, but, I can't do that, or I don't do that. I don't run. If I take a walk, that's better than sitting on the couch eating potato chips, right? Like, it's levels of thing, and maybe it's an internal thing.
Yeah. Another hurdle is my feeling of, and I've heard this from other people, I don't want to donate to the public radio because every time I donate, they change the format, or the PBS station cancels my show. Or they're not doing what I want them to do.
Yeah,
in many now this is like in many, there's many varieties of I donated to this charity and now they started not acting like I want them to act.
Yeah, as I hear you say that, this may be projecting, but it reminds me of also giving to family or other people too, is if there's an agenda to it, which is by certain nature natural. Like, I give this, I wanted to continue to get the thing that I was getting from them, the programming from NPR, or whatever it is. But if you can take away those contingencies, or the strings, so to speak, is, hey, if I'm going to give this gift to my son or daughter or grandchild, and I'd like them to use it for this, but if I tie that to an outcome, that's setting us up for potentially negative feelings.
Right.
And a similar thing if I give money to Special Olympics or public radio or wherever I give it to, and go, listen, if they start to go in a different direction. For me anyway, what I would do is, might not give you anymore if you go in that other direction, but I don't necessarily feel bad about what I gave you if I can tie it to, listen, supporting the cause at the time, and it's maybe a moment in time feeling more so than now, and you didn't say this, but the idea of like, oh, hey, now you owe me, sort of like quid pro quo sort of thing, right? Which is a natural way to go. I did this for you, you would have to do this for me. To the extent that maybe we can keep ourselves separate from that and say, you know what, I'm giving this because I think it's good, and if it changes, that's okay. It's not a lifetime commitment type of feeling.
Honestly, for me, it's more of a feeling of investment. It's like I'm invested in you, not I gave you money at one point. You know, I feel like it's more like I put money in. Now you need to be, the returns need to be the things that I like about your organization.
Well, it's interesting, and to take it off on a little bit of a tangent, though, but we see that sometimes with investments, right? We make an investment in a mutual fund or a company, and then it goes south, and I wouldn't buy it again if I had it now, but I'm going to hang on to that because they I want to ride it back up, sort of thing, right? And getting tied to, well, this is that, I kind of grab onto that.
Right.
We see it all the time with investments, and maybe to the extent, again, you can get some distance from that to say, yeah, I got those feelings, but you know what happened yesterday and what happened tomorrow aren't necessarily correlated.
So we've talked about 3 flavors of regret, but let's talk about some of the ways that you can multiply your happiness and sense of meaning with donations too.
I like this better.
Yeah, I know. And so the first one I want to talk about is donated and get to celebrate. And John doesn't brag about this, so I'm going to do some bragging for him. His firm has had a 20th anniversary recently, which is like, yay, go John. And so they decided to have a donating program. Do you want to talk about it?
Sure. So what we did was we asked our clients to nominate charities, and we gave out 20 $1,000 donations and on behalf of the company and our clients.
Okay.
And it was kind of scary because that's a big number for us, and so stretching a little bit from what I felt comfortable was really a cool thing.
Right.
And I'll tell you, the other thing that was really useful about that from a celebration standpoint was learning about some of the things that were important to our clients. Right. From a business standpoint, that's one thing, but I think the same thing can translate into families. Person's giving money, and to find out what your kids and what your grandkids and other people that are important to you, to say, listen, to be participating in that process, that was a really meaningful thing for us, and hopefully we did some good in the community as well.
Yeah, and I think another part of this, again, to optimize your happiness, is that you don't get 10 times the feeling of, they call it warm glow, for a 10 times bigger donation, okay? But spreading it out, so doing 20 over the course of a year will make you feel good 20 times.
Yeah, right.
And
hit of endorphins or whatever.
And so that, it seems like, was a really smart way to do it.
Yeah, that's a really interesting thing. We talk oftentimes from a simplicity standpoint with clients about making larger one-time donations, but you might rethink that. Maybe we'll need to rethink that of giving a little bit on a weekly, monthly basis. Maybe there's something good to that. I mean, there certainly is something good. Maybe it's outweighs some of the simplicity.
Right. And sharing it also, I think, is important too, because so sharing it with your clients, again, it like makes everybody feel good.
Yeah.
That's so you donated the money and I feel good.
Yeah,
that's awesome. That's
a
better.
Win-win situation, right?
Exactly. Another thing that I'm working with right now is donating money as a personal reward. Okay, so one of the ways that you can spend money for more meaning, there aren't that many ways, but one way you can do that is by rewarding yourself, especially for boring, repetitive tasks that you don't really like. Okay? So if you do, but we all have chores, right? Or things that fall into that category, right?
Yep.
And so if you set up yourself with a reward, that makes the whole thing feel better.
Right.
It's a good way to spend, it makes you feel better. And so I'm thinking about donating using donating again for a multiplying effect, because already rewarding myself is going to feel good. But instead of just spending it on me, if I spend it as a reward, I think that'll help.
Yeah, that sounds awesome. I love that.
Yeah, so another idea. Okay, great. So with that, I think it's a great time to wrap it up. I'm Bridget Sullivan Mermel. I've got a fee-only financial planning practice in Chicago, Illinois.
And I'm John Shear. I've got a fee-only financial planning practice in Middleton, Wisconsin. Both Bridget and I are taking on new clients at our firms, but if you are looking for an advisor that thinks like us in your area, we're both members of the Alliance of Comprehensive Planners, and you can check out acplanners.org.
And please subscribe.